What's making that noise?
It's outside, it's from the rain.
If you want to, you can close the window. And you will hear that.
Okay. I'm live on Facebook and YouTube already. I just go live on Instagram. Hi guys, how are you? Happy, what day is it today? It's Monday. It's Monday. Gosh, I lost my whole days. I hope you guys are well. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I am currently staying at a friend's place, so all the fancy lights are not here today. I'm in Joburg, and it's been an interesting week. So I've been asked by numerous people to do a review on Danica's live. I watched it. I think I watched it twice. And then I was sent Nawal's live, which was an interesting watch. So I'm going to start like this. First and foremost, I am visiting someone's house, so I need to be respectful. So I'm not going to stay on here for very long. The second thing is I'm going to give an overview of the story because I'm pretty sure there are people who are new here who has no idea what's happening in the world and why Instagram is a mess and TikTok is a mess right now because of influencer spaces and all that. So quick review of the story. Last week Monday, because now I got my facts correct, Danica, who is Nadia Japhta, who is an influencer's sister-in-law, left home. The one story she ran away. Her Nadia's family is that she left, went to stay by a friend of hers, Kathy, escaped in the middle of the night, and then her husband picked her up the following day from Kathy's house. And then Danica didn't really have an opportunity to speak to Kathy because Tariq, her husband, said she needs to go home. And since then, Danica's been difficult to locate. Since then, information has come out that Tariq, who is Nadia Japhta's brother, his third wife's family is concerned because they haven't been able to get a hold of her either. In between all of that, there's been a plethora of TikTok videos and lives between Nadia Japhta's mother, Nawal, Tariq, who is Nadia's brother, and Danica's come on and off. And essentially what has happened is Danica's family is concerned because they cannot reach her. They haven't had any communication with her. And they have now subsequently done a video and a live. Her brother has been really trying to get everyone to talk about this so that they can track Danica down, because as far as everyone is concerned and the information that is coming out is that this is an abusive situation. So Tariq's history I mentioned in the last video, but I'll just go over it a little bit more. On his lives, he's been extremely abusive. A video is now surfaced that I've seen a couple of times where his mother, Nawal, is very abusive and aggressive on a video in defense of him. I've spoken about the sadistic relationships between abusive mothers and sons and how they actually help their sons abuse their wives. So based on everything that has happened, Danica's come on a couple of lives with Tariq. She hasn't really said much. She has pivoted from certain questions and certain probing that came from her mother-in-law. But then she did a live. The live was 11 minutes long, and she didn't say a lot either. Now, I could end this live there, right, and say she didn't say much. But there are a few things that I want to address. First and foremost, she seems, in my opinion, and a lot of this is just from what I see. I can't verify any of this stuff. She seems like she doesn't have access to what's happening outside of her home right now. Everything she said in that video referred directly to the video the live her brother did with Kathy, his wife Robin, and his mom that came on the end of that video. If you've watched that live, you would have seen how heartbreaking it is to see Danica's mother call out to her and tell her that she loves her. I was in tears. Okay, that was heartbreaking to watch. I'm sorry, I have like a funny throat. But that was really heartbreaking to watch. And for Danica to come and do a live and barely say anything after that makes me wonder how much context she has to what's going on online right now. because there's a lot going on online. But I'm not seeing any, like she has no insights. So from what the information that was shared last week was that her phone was removed. And from what I suspect is that she's only being told what's happening and is not actually, doesn't actually have access to what's going on. So she spoke really not about much. She just said that she doesn't want her family to keep doing these lives. She wants her life to be private. They don't need to do this in a public space. But then I obviously had a lot of questions because nothing she said actually qualifies anything that's happened in the last week. There's one thing saying you have marital problems and sometimes you have to leave the marriage just so that you can get things straight. 24 hours, number one, is not enough for that to happen. Secondly, based on Kathy's, what Kathy said in the live with Dale and them on Saturday, was that Danica didn't have an opportunity to even explain what was going on when Tariq came to pick her up. So my question is, why are all these dots not connecting? There are too many open-ended questions, right? First and foremost, yes, this should be a private matter. The only reason it came to social media is because Danica hasn't spoken to her family. Now, this could be an easy fix. If she's fine, essentially, not under duress, not feeling stressed, it would have been an easy thing to send a text or phone her family and say, let's meet for coffee and let's resolve what's actually going on, right? Isn't that logic? Like, there's no logic pieces that make sense here. But that hasn't happened. To date, her family has not had contact with her, which doesn't make any sense to me. So why has she not done that if she doesn't want this on a public platform? Then we need to consider the fact that Tariq and Awal have gotten an enormous amount of attention on this. And like I said to you last week, abusive and narcissistic people will do anything to get attention. Any attention is good attention to them. It doesn't matter if it's negative or not. They will do anything to make sure that the attention is coming their way. Their lives are getting a lot of views still. People are not really unfollowing them because we live in a world where people follow people for crazy reasons. But my biggest question is, like, why, if she is fine and he says she's fine, is him and his mother going on lives and still continuing to spin this narrative that is extremely confusing? Like, make it make sense, realistically. Why am I going to want to go on a public platform when I can actually resolve something in private? And then I watched Nawal's live. There was a couple of contradictions there that I really have questions about. One of them was that she said, if Danica wanted to speak to her family, she would have. And then she said the family hasn't contacted her in a long time. And then in the same breath, she kind of said no. She offered a space for Danica to see her family or whatever. None of those things make sense to me. Like, what is the actual story? It doesn't have to be our business. But at the end of the day, you are coming to lives on TikTok where thousands of people are watching you and then saying things like, yeah, no, I just want y'all, this is a private matter, this is a marriage matter, we want people just to stop talking about it, I'm no longer going to address it. But then last week you were going on like a tangent about all of this. So I'm going to get back to the narcissistic stuff, right? One of the things that has been a concern for me, and this is something I spoke to someone yesterday about, is the fact that you don't see Danica. As far as what I've heard her brother them talk about, and what I heard about Kathy, they say she's very soft. But I don't see any indication that her, how can I say, her personality is being displayed, if that makes sense, right? All I'm seeing is a shell of a person who's trying to survive. Now, that in itself could also be speculation, but realistically, coming on a live for 11 minutes and barely saying anything is confusing to me, because she was very careful not to make her husband the bad guy. She did make a statement that she tried to pull back, saying that everyone is trying to villainize him. And then she pulled back. There was something else she said also about that, and then she pulled back. And then she's also trying to be very careful not to villainize her family. But there's nothing concise happening. And one of the reasons that is interesting to me is if you understand narcissistic personalities, narcissistic people, essentially personality development didn't really happen the way that it should have while they were growing up. So why they need to constantly be attached to people is because they actually become them, right? They need to become a version of those people so those people can fall in love with them. Then what they do is they treat that person so badly that eventually they become a shell of themselves over time. So if you've been in a narcissistic or abusive relationship for a very long time, over a few years you'll start to notice that your sense of self and who you are and what it is you really love to do and who you are planning to become kind of disappears. So much so that people who are in abusive relationships and you don't know, they change the way that they look, what they wear, and generally end up being depressed in those relationships. And then they always put it down to something else because they have to give their partner the benefit of the doubt. Right now, I'm not seeing Danica. I'm seeing a person who is just sitting there and saying what she must so that things in her home can calm down, right? I'm going to again say this is speculation on my point, on my end. I'm watching what's happening and just putting the pieces together based on the education that I have. She may come out and say something different, but like I said earlier, the dots are not, the sense is not making sense. If they want to resolve this thing, why is Nawal not taking it upon herself to bring the family together and resolve this internally? Why are these people essentially on the run? Why is his third wife's family coming out and asking, saying that they're also not able to get in contact with her, with their daughter? It's just a lot of faff, a lot of mess. And if you understand narcissistic people, there's a lot of word salad happening. So word salad is a lot of empty words that actually just try to confuse you and manipulate you, but doesn't actually say anything meaningful. When narcissistic people don't know how to answer a question, because none of the questions are actually being answered. When they don't know how to answer a question, they give you word salad. It confuses you enough for you to back off, and they're attempting this in a public space. It's very difficult to do that in a public space because you're not dealing with one person. It's very difficult to manipulate thousands of people on a live when you are trying to word salad them. And Nawal is doing exactly the same thing. There's just too many confusing pieces here. I need to say that I really feel for Dale and them because at the end of the day, they want one thing. And they only did this because they want one thing. It has nothing to do with fame. It has nothing to do with positioning. It has to do with getting their sister back. I'm pretty sure if they came out, Nawal and then decided they wanted to resolve things, that Dale and them wouldn't even be on socials like this again because they are private people. The fact that they had to come outside of their comfort zone and talk about this publicly in itself says a lot, right? They've had to violate their own privacy in order to get access. Now, Danica said in her live that they are violating her privacy and Kathy is violating her privacy. What's very interesting to note is that Danica didn't deny any of Kathy's allegations. None of them. She never said Kathy wasn't talking the truth. What she actually said was that what Kathy shared was private between me and her, and I feel like it was a violation. And from Kathy's live on Saturday, what stood out to me was that she said there were things that Danica told her that are actually scary. Danica didn't deny those things, right? We really need to look at this holistically. I said on my story, was it Saturday or day before yesterday, that there are people who know who these people are. And if they are not actually going to say anything, Danica is going to be in a dangerous situation. And I don't care if people say, like, my thing is dangerous has nothing to necessarily even do with violence. Violence is part of the process. But dangerous in the sense where this woman looks like a shell of herself. At any point, she could decide that she doesn't want to be a part of any of this anymore. You don't see the Danica that they've described to us she is. And that is very concerning to me, which means more than the indoctrination that she kept talking about, she's essentially turned into a drone in this situation. Because if she had seen any of the stuff happening online, she would have at least mentioned one of it. I don't think she has seen any of it. And I don't know, I have the sneaking suspicion that she hasn't actually watched her family's entire life, but that it was probably described to her. But like I said, that is speculation. There's just a lot that doesn't make sense. And if you've been in narcissistic abusive relationships and you are aware that you're in one, you realize that there's a lot of dots that also don't connect. And when you try to connect them, the narcissistic abusive person becomes violent or angry, or they word salad you, right? Because the plan is to keep you as confused as possible so that you don't really know what's actually happening. But we've spoken a lot about this in the last week, and I feel like the stuff that's coming out online is not concrete enough to do a full evaluation and assessment, because a lot of it is being controlled, right? Within the Japhta system, there is definitely some sort of PR control happening that is not allowing us to see any of the truth that's happening. That in itself is scary. Because anything, she could be threatened with weapons for all we know, right? You never know. The fact that he has the power to shut her up, which Kathy spoke about on Saturday, says a lot about where the situation is, and how dangerous this actually could be for her. At the end of the day, we still need to be talking about this, because the more we talk about it, the more we will recognize that this is happening to other people. And it's so easy to sit around a table and talk about some of this and realize that you know more than one person going through exactly the same thing. And when we have friends who we realize have completely regressed into themselves and become shells of themselves, when you have conversations with them, the question you need to be asking is, are you under a system of control? And do you not have an outlet? So at the end of the day, I'm going to end this live here. We still need to find them. I feel like Danica actually needs her own voice, but it's going to take time for that. But I am genuinely concerned for where this is going, especially because it's been going on for too long. Like, this has been over a week now, right? She hasn't been able to be tracked down for over a week. And how dangerous a situation can become once she is, right? Because as far as it seems, Tariq and Nawal act as though they're owning the situation. There doesn't seem to be any common sense involved here. No emotional maturity, no self-awareness whatsoever. All the characteristic of abusive narcissistic people. And because they can't self-regulate, when they're called out for certain things, they either word salad you or they blow up completely. My only worry about doing these lives consistently is that we are going to poke Tariq to do something violent, and that scares me, which is why I was also very wary about doing this live today. But I've been requested to do a review at least 3 times in the last couple of days. But I'm going to end this by saying we need to keep these people in our prayers, and whoever, like I said in my video the other day, someone knows who these people are. If at any point you do, recognize that you could be aiding and abetting a very dangerous situation, and there are little children involved here. And at some point, realistically, to the Japhta family, y'all gotta make some sense of this for Dale's family. Not even for us. We don't deserve that. But Dale's family does. Because right now, this seems to be going down a very dark path. And everyone who's not saying anything, and everyone who is sitting around and watching Nawal and Tariq's lives are helping the abusers do what they're doing to this woman right now. Yeah, that's all I gotta say on that. So, are you guys, my DMs are open, you can comment. I'm running still some thoughts on this, which is why I'm making this so concise. But I'm going to say I'm worried, as we all should be. But we also should be very mindful of how we're talking about these people in these spaces. And also, we should be mindful of who we're following. We were talking the other day about the kind of influences that we follow. The influencer's not going to say anything because this is going to affect their pockets. It makes me angry. But at the same time, I'm learning that what most people don't know is the influencer space is filled with people who are in abusive relationships who can't say anything. So we need to be mindful of those things as well. But if you have a voice and this is not your battle, you're not struggling with this at home, please lend your voice to this until we find Danica, until we can help this family make some sense of what is going on. And until Danica can for sure say to her family without Nawal or Tariq in the room, or without any coercion, that she's fine. So have a good evening. I'll speak to you guys in the next live.